Hello and welcome to the latest episode of AECTechTV. I'm Paul Wilkinson. I'm a technology consultant, a writer, blogger and freelance journalist living in London.
And hello from me. I'm Aarni Heiskanen, construction innovation agent based in Helsinki, Finland. AECTechTV is our weekly video news magazine show looking at the latest technologies used in today's architecture, engineering and construction industries.
And coming up in today's show, we look at recent developments regarding Autodesk and its approach to Open BIM, plus the European launch of Autodesk's BuildingConnected service. Henry Mickleburgh takes to the AECTechTV soapbox to talk about volumetric modular construction. Aarni reviews some technology highlights from the WDBE 2020 keynotes. We talk to Sue Butcher about construction products and manufacturers' data, and we look forward to some future events.
Thank you, Paul. We talked about Autodesk in a previous episode of AECTechTV. Paul now updates us on developments following the Open Letter initiative, and we'll talk about the BuildingConnected network.
In episode 4 of AECTechTV, I reported on the open letter to Autodesk Group and the conversations that began after a group of 17 mainly UK-based architectural firms published an open letter to Autodesk's CEO Andrew Anagnost. There have been some further moves in recent weeks. Earlier this year, marshalled by IT consultant Ian Godwin and publicised by AEC Magazine, the open letter to Autodesk Group voiced concerns about development of the Revit design authoring application. They also highlighted what they felt were increasing costs of ownership of this software and its poor support for interoperability, which hampers exchange of data with users of other solutions. And they raised issues about Autodesk's use of data hosted in its cloud solutions. While Autodesk responded quickly to the group's protest, the open letter to Autodesk Group continued to grow. It expanded to include firms in Europe. We learned about past similar letters in the Asia-Pacific region and in South Africa in 2014. And in September 2020, a new open letter to Autodesk emerged from Brazil's National Association of Architecture and Consulting Engineers. Autodesk's response has extended beyond direct replies and blog posts. It has now tried to demonstrate its willingness to change by new involvements in two organisations at the core of international BIM movements. First, in September, Autodesk announced it was joining the Open Design Alliance. As the ODA's newest member, Autodesk said this would speed up Autodesk's progress towards supporting IFC, an open file format that's becoming more frequently used in the AEC industry. It also said the decision to join ODA is one of the many steps Autodesk is taking to continue fostering an open community, and additional investments in adherence to IFC will address bottlenecks for data exchange between Autodesk and non-Autodesk products. Some industry watchers were sceptical about Autodesk's move, recalling lawsuits brought by Autodesk against ODA after it was formed in 1998 as the Open DWG Alliance to develop the DWG file format so that it could act as an open exchange standard for the computer-aided design industry. Ralph Grabowski of World CAD Access also suggested that the move was partly about cost savings and noted it was solely about IFC. Working with the ODA, according to Grabowski, was less expensive than using someone else's IFC toolkit. And he noted the agreement was for IFCs only, no access to DWG or contributors to the same topic. And in any event, he also suggested Autodesk is showing less and less interest in AutoCAD. The second industry move by Autodesk came this week. On 26th of October, it joined the Building Smart International Strategic Advisory Council, a move said to signal Autodesk's commitment to open data standards at this pivotal time in the digitisation within the architecture, engineering and construction industry. Building Smart's Strategic Advisory Council is a group of members who meet regularly to develop and execute on the core mission and values of the Building Smart community. Richard Petrie, Chief Executive of Building Smart International, said, "We're delighted Autodesk has joined the Strategic Advisory Council at this time when we are pushing for implementation of our new standards." Vikram Dutt, Associate Vice President of Building Design at Autodesk, said, "Building Smart continues to be a leading voice for industry standardization and cooperation. And as members of the Strategic Advisory Council, Autodesk is committed to strengthening the mission and improving the built environment around us." Whilst on the subject of Autodesk, the US giant has announced the international expansion of BuildingConnected, its social network for construction firms. It is now looking to help firms in the UK and Ireland streamline their bidding processes via the Autodesk Construction Cloud Builders Network. Managing tenders has historically been a tedious and time-consuming process, with firms using a piecemeal combination of different softwares and, in many cases, reliant upon paper. The result is often significant time inefficiencies and data losses that lead to costly mistakes. Autodesk says the international expansion of BuildingConnected will enable teams in the UK and Ireland to keep communication and data fluid, transparent and consistent across stakeholders, supporting both sides of the tendering process. Autodesk has also published a report, Connected Procurement, the Foundation of Construction Success, which outlines the findings of research conducted among 375 owners, or clients as we call them in the UK, general contractors and subcontractors in the UK and Ireland. The report points to a skill shortage in the UK construction sector as the threat of additional lockdown measures threatens to disrupt the industry further. Notable findings include almost 1/3 of subcontractors have downsized their workforce in the past 6 months. A quarter of subcontractors say their business has faced increased pressure to complete projects on time. And employee retention and labour shortage are among the main concerns of subcontractors regarding the future of the industry. Faced with such pressures, Autodesk says it's time for contractors to reconsider legacy procurement processes and use technology tailored for the construction industry to support pre-construction decisions. Unsurprisingly, it advocates digital tools, including networks of construction professionals for finding both qualified collaborators with proven track records and new projects to bid on. It advocates digital tools to support the tender management process, centralising bids in one place and streamlining administrative tasks. And it also urges people to adopt inbuilt data analytics to help spot mistakes in tenders and therefore mitigate risks. One of Autodesk's main competitors, Bentley Systems, held its annual Year in Infrastructure event last week. Like most other events, it was held online. For me, the major news of the week came from the opening day press conference, where Bentley Systems announced it had acquired PCSG, a UK-based consultancy chaired by former UK BIM Task Group head Mark Bew. Founded in 2000 and headquartered in Croydon, south of London, PCSG has, according to Bentley, developed world-leading methodologies, talent and experience in advising built environment owners on going digital and advancing BIM, GIS and infrastructure digital twins. PCSG will become part of the Cohesive Companies, a Bentley business grouping established in early 2020 to deliver consultancy services. Mark Bew said, "Our vision is one of infinitely smarter futures where a digitally engineered built environment supports the delivery of infinitely better social, environmental and financial outcomes."
That was Paul's update on recent events relating to Autodesk, plus some news on developments at Bentley Systems. Next, Henry Mickleburgh gives us his views on volumetric modular construction. I did a podcast interview with Henry Mickleburgh, an international volumetric construction guru, back in February, and here's Henry's update on what's happened in the field since our talk.
Yeah, well, it's in February. It was a very different world. It was very much a commercial-driven, profit-based. Are the key drivers quality, time, and will that make us a better product and improve the profit? And effectively, the things we were talking about were the high-rise, 20-plus stories, Marriott-type hotels, 4-star hotels, and that sort of thing. And the exemplar projects that Greystar have been doing, and the 44 stories, and all those really cool things. Since COVID, all of that has gone completely by the wayside. And it's a very different zeitgeist. It's all about social housing, affordable housing, very much more of a needs-based future for volumetric. And I'm not entirely sure that those markets suit volumetric per se. They suit other types of LMC very well, panelized and bathroom pod type categories. But so the lower rise stuff is a far less volumetric future, effectively, at the moment. But okay, so I don't really talk about shoulda, woulda, coulda, because that's where we're at the moment. Everyone's talking about we should be doing this and we should be changing this, and if we just did, if we introduce this bit of software, or it's not about that. It's very much about a data gathering exercise now for volumetric, because a volumetric module is just a thing with stuff in it. That stuff is quantifiable, it's measurable. It's like a car. A car is a thing with lots of stuff in it. An aeroplane is a thing with lots of stuff in it. And that's the mindset that we've really got to get our heads around that. So I'm almost saying, well, there's no future of volumetric. There absolutely is. It's just at the moment, and we've only got 10 minutes, so I've got to try and abridge this as best I can. Fundamentally, there are so many missed golden opportunities at the moment in the market. And that's because the whole housing is predicated upon a profit-based paradigm. Developers are individually doing things. They'll make improvements and make efficiencies for the benefit of their bottom line, which is profit. Now, in order to do that, to make volumetric and offsite LMC better for everyone, we need to change that paradigm. And that's unlikely to happen realistically at the moment, unless governments legislate. There's a lot of talk about it, but it's not happening. So you have to legislate from MC, but the key drivers need to be demonstrable, tangible, and they have to be in the public interest. You've got a long time waiting for that. And you've got to, the other issue is always, these things that change are competitive advantage. But in order to, back in February, we were talking about all the best solutions are vertically integrated. You've got developer, contractor, volumetric supply, you control the whole thing, and it's still about control. But the big programs of work that we're missing now are, like, for example, UK housing associations. They may have 5,000 sites that they own or have options on. We want to look at the 5,000 sites, and that's not happening. What's happening is we're looking at a project by project basis, or there'll be some 100 house sample scheme or tester that they roll out, and that just is not the way to do it. The data that's available from 5,000 sites, you can pull and scrape out of the public domain from planning portals, and there are some amazing companies like Urban Intelligence that can take a site for you and give you 500 data points on that site that we can link automatically straight away to say, well, that will work for a volumetric solution, or it's a panelized system or whatever. But there are so many missed opportunities now, because when you've got 1,000 sites that you can use one type of solution for, volumetric solution, it's a completely different proposition to 1, 2, 3, or 10. So those things, and the other huge missed opportunities are like the giga projects in Saudi Arabia, for example, like NEOM, where you've got 65,000 homes that require delivery finishing in 5 years' time, 8,000 hotel rooms. I mean, that's just a massive program of works. So where am I going with this? I'm running out of time. Fundamentally, forget everything else. Forget everyone saying, well, we should do this, we should do that. I was great. Well, you know, we're going to improve this. Yeah. It's about digitizing those products. The future is putting together digitized products, because at the moment, the way it happens is an architect designs something, usually in Revit. 84% of the world's design in Revit. They then go out into 2D information, that goes out to tender, main contractor gets it, that then goes into the subcontract suppliers chain, then go to a manufacturer, that comes back, it costs you much, you need to VE it, it goes around the whole thing again. It just doesn't work. All that information is just, they're just Ds, it's just data. So with the digitization packages that are out there, and there are 3 really good ones out there at the moment, and one of them that is absolutely groundbreaking, and I think this is the one that's going to be the game changer, if you like. It effectively configures everything from the end, all the G files for the robots, the approvals, the specifications, the cost, everything feeds into a parametric model that then is automatically fed into Revit from day one. So whenever you change something, everything else changes. It's all there. It's all, everything's back to front. All the disciplines are siloed. You know, oh, we've got a quantity surveyor going to do the contracts, or we've got an estimator is going to do the bill of quantities. We've got, it's just silly. It's just silly because it's all just data. It can all be parametrically fed into customizable digital products. That is the game changer. So probably done 10 minutes now. All I'd say is volumetric is a thing. They're big things made of stuff. You know exactly what the stuff is. If you can say, well, my analog is for this product to these brand standards, and it will work in 90% of situations, you've only got to control the 10%. Absolutely. And if you can turn that product, you can get your product into a customizable data, digitized product that goes instantaneously from day one into the hands of the architect that's designing the schemes in Revit. That's a game changer. And I think that does a lot of things. It does the philanthropy side of things, and it also does you don't have to sell it anymore. It's there, it's available to you. And it levels the playing field as well, without having to say, well, let's not make profit anymore. So it's either going to be competitive advantage through digitization, or it's going to be legislation. That's where I see it going in this funny new world we're in.
That was Henry Mickleburgh. Next, Aarni reviews some highlights from the recent WDBE event.
World Summit on Digital Built Environment, WDBE, was a virtual event. It allowed the attendees to enter a virtual city, walk around, watch presentations, and visit the exhibition area. Here are my AEC Tech picks from the first 4 keynotes. First, David Weir-McCall of Epic Games talks about virtual collaboration.
What we're very lucky with and what we're very fortunate with within the AEC is we have a great outreach. You know, our projects touch everyone. They affect everyone, from the clients to the developers to the stakeholders to the end users themselves. So we already have this great reach of people within the sort of outer edges. Now, what's happened over the last little while is the world's gotten a lot smaller for all the good reasons. Projects have now become global. We're communicating with offices around the world. The other thing that's happened very recently, and unfortunately why we can't all be in the same room together today, the ability to become face-to-face with someone has now been restricted. So whenever we're looking at achieving these big, hairy, audacious goals, how is it that we can do it whenever the human connection is taken out of the equation? So what we want to look at is how we add that in and how that is being added in. You know, we've seen the introduction of tools like virtual reality and augmented reality and mixture, all the realities, as a way of bringing our tools into the conversation and bringing our models into a way that people can understand them better. And the goal of these is to then take them one step beyond, to look at the human connection in these spaces. And I'm happy to share some great examples of people who are doing that. So I want to start today with a company called Thea. So Thea has built a number of different tool sets over Unreal Engine in optimization and collaboration. And the one that they've spoken of, the one that they've recently released is one called Big Room. Now you may be familiar with the terminology Big Room, it also sometimes is War Room. It is eventually for the spaces that explore, the presentation styles, whenever you meet with people to discuss an idea, War Room. But the idea of it is what they've done is they've allowed you to be able to log into the space from anywhere around the world. So you can come in and be in a virtual space with your colleagues, with other people, and then present that content in a way which is very familiar to everyone. You can share the same mediums. You can share PDFs, you can share floor plans, you can share renders and animations. And this sense of familiarity, all the way through to the point that you can sketch and annotate on drawings within this space, is really key in how we maintain that human connection in these collaborative spaces. The other thing which they do very well is they push the boundaries a little bit on what else we can do within a digital space. You have the ability to bring in 3D models, so you can explore both the floor plans and the 3D model in a real-time environment.
Jakob Strömen Andersen of Henning Larsen demonstrates how VR helped in acoustic simulation during the design of Uppsala City Hall.
Normally when you do acoustic simulation, you will build up a model, a standalone model. You will import it in the simulation program. You will do a ray trace space simulation and you will get the output back again. Sometimes you will have some audioization so you can hear the output in one point in the space. Other times you will just have a spreadsheet with dBs talking about good and bad. But it's really difficult to translate the experience of the audio or the virtual environment. So what Finware does, he tried to convert that into a user experience. Combining two technologies, he's looking at the offshore industry because they're really good of wave-based simulation. And then he looks into the gaming industry, the virtual reality, the way that we engage with the users in our models. Here's Finware testing his virtual soundscapes in the dead sound chamber at the Technical University of Denmark. You can see he's smiling. It's a lot of fun to do research. Here's one of the early mock-up. You can see that is a wave-based propagation of the sound in a space. It's three-dimensional, so you can actually walk around and you can hear the direct output around the room. I will show you a small video demo. It's a virtual reality. I will bring on my virtual VR glasses and my headphone and give you this experience about being in this Uppsala concert hall and interact with the absorption on the surfaces and hear the direct output.
Said nothing. There once was a young rat named Arthur who would never take the trouble to make up his mind. Whenever his friends asked him if he would like to go out with them, he would only answer, "I don't know." He wouldn't say yes, and he wouldn't say no either. He could never learn to make a choice. His Aunt Ellen said to him,
Marta Fernandez of RMIT Europe talks about how technology helps create healthier built environments.
Technology is key to tracking, monitoring, and adjusting building performance levels for occupant health and well-being via building sensors and automated building monitoring systems. In addition to building sensors, people can provide feedback of their experience in different environments through smartphones, air quality monitors, nutrition apps, walkability ratings, sleep rhythms, etc. I'll share with you an example of a research project that RMIT and Arup recently ran at the Arup's Melbourne office. Some computer scientist colleagues have developed a way to measure staff comfort and concentration in flexible project-based working spaces. Researchers at RMIT have used artificial intelligence to uncover patterns in human behavior. They work with psychologists to identify several key variables for concentration and comfort levels and set about measuring these with sensors. Data was collected on noise levels, indoor temperature and air quality, humidity, air pressure, and even electromagnetic fields. The sensor data was combined with survey data, and that was used to train machine learning algorithms to identify patterns in perceived concentration and activity. The results were some suggested solutions for making these spaces work best for people. And what did they find? Well, no surprise that different people concentrated better in different zones. And they also had other important insights for managing staff in the space. For example, many people had a favorite spot, such as near the window, the kitchen, or their manager, and found concentrating more difficult if they weren't able to sit there. Thermal comfort and high CO2 concentration was found to have a major impact on how focused people were. And as the day progressed, people became more sensitive to this. So this points to how important it is to have high-quality heating, cooling, and ventilation, as well as indoor plants to reduce CO2. The number of formal and informal meetings was also noted as a key factor on perceived concentration, and I'm sure we can all relate to this. So this type of system can really help to enable informed decision-making on workplace design and layout, or even to propose break times or suggest what zone of the office might suit better for each employee.
And finally, Annalise Jones talking about resilient spaces.
The medium-term intervention I'd like to talk about is the adaptive building system. So, first of all, the homeostatic building facade by Decker. This is a wonderfully computer-driven environment that basically reacts to the adaptation to real-time condition and improves the overall building performance. It's working on a biofeedback that instructs the building to adapt to a comfortable human level. This is really, really forward-thinking. The second alternative in this medium solution is the first bioresponsive facade. This was built in 2013 with Arab, and this is basically using microalgae that can be grown to produce energy levels that can thereby be stored in the building, creating a net zero source of energy. But also the algae actually, when there's more sun, it basically grows and creates more of a shade and thereby cools down the environment. But the other thing that I would add to this, the fact that it, one, controls the environment through biofeedback, two, produces its own energy, but three, because it's using a green surface, a live green surface, it's also utilizing biophilia. Now, biophilia is basically our intrinsic connection to nature. Every time we see something green, we find that our blood pressure lowers. We actually perform better. And as much time, there is a lot of evidence that's showing the longer time we spend in a green space, you actually perform better as an individual. Your long-term health is improved. We have connection with the microbiota, which is basically the bacteria that's in mud. Every time we do that microbiota actually feeds back into our own gut, which actually prolongs our health, which is why our interaction with green space is so vital.
We will be looking at some further highlights from the WDBE event in the next episode of AECTechTV. Next, Paul recently talked to Sue Butcher about efforts to improve understanding of data about construction products.
Would you first like to introduce yourself, Sue, and give a little bit of background about you and your business?
Thanks very much. My name's Sue Butcher. I trained as an architect, and then I spent 15 years managing architects' practices, and eventually that ended up in me setting up a consultancy called Just Practicing Limited. And essentially what we do is we help construction product manufacturers communicate better with architects. So it's a sort of cross-discipline thing. You could call it marketing and content creation. It's very heavily digital based, so it's about understanding the digital environment for manufacturers.
You were involved with the development of a document for the UK BIM Alliance looking at product data. Do you want to just talk briefly about that?
Yes, it was called A Fresh Way Forward for Product Data, State of the Nation, and as the title suggests, the idea that the UK BIM Alliance had was to sort of draw a line in the sand to describe what is happening with product data in the construction industry at the moment and where the bottlenecks are and what the issues are, and that was produced in 2018. And one of the most influential things it said really was that the journey of data through the construction process is very fragmented, and we need to do something about that, essentially. It's 2 years old now.
I was going to say, what happened afterwards, after its publication?
Myself and various people on the working group, but there were a dozen of us, have been looking for ways to take the ideas of that report forward into something more specific to various sectors of the industry. And I'm involved in 2 projects, and this is one of them, which is the Plain Language Guide to Product Data for Manufacturers.
So how did this guide come about, and who are the people behind it?
Well, it's being sponsored by the IET, so the Institute for Engineering Technology, and it's a completely independent project. The idea is to produce a plain language guide for manufacturers about how to digitize their product data, and it's quite important that we're looking to produce independent, impartial information. The people involved are firstly for the IET, Rick Hartwig, and then Paul Surin, who's now at IBM, used to be at Wienerberger, and Patricia Massey, who's at Electrium, which is part of Siemens. And we were all on the working group together, and we were brought together by Rick to produce this document for this project.
How is the document being developed? What activities are you engaged in at the moment?
We're having a very interesting time because whilst we want to be completely independent, we also want to provoke a lot of discussion and encourage people to be involved who may not be aware of this topic, and to get as much visibility as possible. So in order to do that, we are publishing a series of articles every fortnight. We're about halfway through that now, and each article covers a different topic in subject of product data and manufacturers. And after we publish each article, which is on a Friday, the following Friday we have an open Zoom call with anyone who wants to join us to talk about the article and the issues it raises. And that's being very successful in flagging up loads of things which will help us develop the guide and make sure it's as useful as possible for the target audience.
What subjects have you covered so far?
Well, so far in this series, we started off by describing what construction product data is from a manufacturer's point of view. And then the second article was about standards. There's some new standards that have come out, which is one of the things that's happened since the original working group document. So there's an article about how data needs to be connected to standards and arranged according to them. And then we did an article about product comparison, which is a key example of how structuring your data is absolutely essential. And then last week, we moved on to the data itself, and we wrote an article which argues that manufacturers should organise and control their product data. And we had a very exciting Zoom call about it this morning, which was, yes, it was quite good actually. I'm looking forward to seeing the recording back.
And what are the future articles that you've got lined up?
Well, one of the things that's happening is the agenda is evolving, as you can imagine, but the next one is probably going to be controversial too. It's about 3D BIM objects, which is a topic of a lot of interest to manufacturers. Why did we do 3D BIM objects? Was it the right decision? What happened, and what should manufacturers learn from that?
And when will the finished plain language guide be published?
Well, we're hoping early in 2021. The articles will run up to just before Christmas, and then we should be producing the guide early in 2021. I'm not committing to January, February, but something like that. I think that's what we've got in mind, as soon as possible after that. And
in terms of an outcome from publishing the report, what would success look like in an ideal world?
Oh, that's a very good question, isn't it? I think I want change in the industry, and I think it was very evident today that there are lots of different perspectives on this topic, depending on where you are in the industry. But the purpose of this guide is to get manufacturers to start digitizing their product data, to see it as something that they need to do for their business success, and avoid making some of the mistakes that others have made in the past. So I think it would be fantastic if everybody downloaded it, if we had a lot of downloads, but also I think we'll be certainly inviting feedback, and if we get some really positive responses, personally I think if we can get a small number of manufacturers to get involved in structuring their data, that would be a success. It's the first step in a very long journey, but it's a very important one.
And do you think its impact will extend beyond the UK? Is this, you've mentioned European standards?
Yes, I think that's very important, and obviously when it comes to construction products, there is an international element. So certainly, and we're supported by Construction Products Europe as well. So we're trying to put a European perspective on it. It's not just a UK matter, and that will obviously have benefits for manufacturers who are going through the challenging process of trying to come to terms with the next 12 months and what they're going to be like.
Sue Butcher, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Sue Butcher telling me about the Institution of Engineering and Technology's plain language guides for product data. And you can find out more about this at a couple of websites. Enter bit.ly/MPLG about to find out about the initiative, and you can read the posts that Sue mentioned at bit.ly/manufacturersPLG. And there is also a hashtag to follow if you want to follow the debates on LinkedIn or Twitter, and that's #manufacturersPLG.
I was speaking there to Sue Butcher about plain language guides to construction product data.
Thanks again to our contributors, Henry Mickleburgh and Sue Butcher.
AECTechTV is a weekly show. Our next show is already in development, but we want your ideas and suggestions, and better still, your contributions for future shows.
Yes, meantime, visit our website, email us, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.
And goodbye from me.